Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Mark Foster Show. Today I wanted to talk about the recent situation in Portland, Oregon, which really is an ongoing situation. Most recently, the mayor of Portland, Oregon himself was tear gassed. And there is a video of him wiping his eyes as he was tear gassed. He, of course, talked about it to the media. He said that he participated in the rally because he wanted to get a sense of what the rally was like, so he could speak about it more intelligently. Well, he certainly did that. The United States is rapidly drifting toward authoritarianism. In many ways, I would suggest that we have really been an authoritarian country for quite a long time. But the current administration has simply taken that kind of below the surface authoritarianism and made it very clear and present. It's taken it beneath the surface to above the surface. When I saw those events taking place in Portland, I thought of this. I thought of my identification with Antifa, which of course is a movement which the President of the United States appears to despise a great deal, which I must say brings me a certain amount of joy. But what I thought about doing, literally, is something that I would not ordinarily want to do, especially in the middle of a pandemic, where I have for the most part been staying at home, other than to go down and pick up my medications once a month and to pick up my mail from the UPS store every week or so. And that is to get into my car and drive up to Portland, Oregon. So I went to Google Maps and I saw that the driving time between here, where I live in the on the Kansas side of the Kansas City metropolitan area, the driving time was between 26 and 27 hours. And so therefore I realized that I could not make that drive in one day. I would have to stay overnight, perhaps 2 nights in a motel, which is not something that I really want to do in the middle of a pandemic, because obviously I have no way of knowing how thoroughly the room or the rooms would have been disinfected prior to my sleeping on the bed. So I was conflicted. I spoke with some friends of mine, and I also spoke with my dentist, who was a friend of mine, and they both strongly advised me against it. All of them advised me against it. A couple of friends and my dentist. But that didn't really dissuade me. What did ultimately dissuade me was when I saw those mothers who had gotten together because of social networking, who had formed a line to protect the protesters from these unmarked officers working for the Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and perhaps some other agencies, when they tear gassed those mothers. There was a Navy veteran. I don't know how old he was. I would guess late 50s, but that's just a guess. He decided that he would go and have a conversation with these so-called officers. He had no weapon. He approached them in a very friendly, non-confrontational manner. The whole thing was videotaped. And they repeatedly beat him with batons. Ultimately, they broke his hand, and they also tear gassed him. I saw 2 interviews that he gave, and he very clearly said what the video showed, which was that he had no intention of starting a fight or of doing anything illegal, and yet in spite of that, these Homeland Security officials, without any markings, so you don't know what agency they're working for, without any name tags, you can't address them by a name, simply beat him up and tear gassed him. And based upon that, I looked at myself and I said, well, I think I'm probably older than he is. I'm 64 years old. I have osteoporosis as well as osteoarthritis. And my body is therefore somewhat fragile. Osteoporosis means that your bones are brittle, and therefore if you break a bone in the wrong part of your body, you could end up bedridden for life. That's one of the consequences of having osteoporosis. Now, of course, I take medication for it, but medication doesn't cure it. It simply gives your body a certain degree of strength, including vitamin D and this other medication I take once a week. So based upon that, I decided, and I must say very reluctantly decided, not to drive up to Portland, Oregon. I felt really bad about that because I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to be one of the people who was helping to defend those protesters from being arrested, possibly beaten up, and tear gassed or pepper sprayed, whatever it is. But it didn't seem like a logical or sensible thing to do. Now, there is a possibility that similar types of agents might be sent right here to where I live in the Kansas City area. And I will have to give that issue very serious thought about whether I want to place my life in jeopardy to protect the people who are going to be inevitably harassed, beaten up, and tear gassed by these Homeland Security officials. I don't know. I haven't made a decision yet on what I'm going to do. My heart tells me I should do it. That's what I feel I should do, especially as a part of this amorphous movement called Antifa. And it genuinely is amorphous. There's no organization, there's no membership card. Anybody who identifies with Antifa is by definition Antifa. But so my heart tells me I should do it, but my head tells me that I should not. And I really don't know whether I should listen to my head or to my heart. And so it's a very difficult conflicting situation for me, because I really feel like I should do something. I mean, honestly, I don't see how anybody could not want to do something. But regardless, I haven't yet made that decision. But I think that my point in making this video is not so much about me, although it may sound like it, but it's about the increasing authoritarianism in the United States of America. I would expect that over the next few months at least, that authoritarianism will increase as we get closer to Election Day on November 3rd, and possibly after that. These confrontations will continue because the president seems to think that being tough like this is increasing his election prospects, whereas in reality it's having the opposite effect. But he doesn't seem to be aware of that. And so as he does this, his poll numbers will presumably continue to decline. His anger will presumably continue to increase, and so the tactics that he uses will, I suspect, become more and more dangerous. That concludes this broadcast of the Dr. Mark Foster Show. This is Mark, signing off. Have a good one.